What's up, everybody? Superworks fan here, and today I want to tell you about my week with the 2016 Jeep Cherokee Latitude 4x4 75th Anniversary Edition. So, the reason why I'm not doing a full review on the Cherokee here is because I already did a full review on the Trailhawk one last year, and so if you were curious to hear all of my thoughts on the interior and how it drives, my first impressions, and all my thoughts on the Cherokee, that is the first video you should watch for sure. Then come back to this one because this video is going to be mostly just giving my in-depth thoughts, because Jeep was kind enough to send me one of these for an entire week. The one that I reviewed last year, I only had it for a few hours, and so I'm able to get more in-depth impressions here. I've been driving this one now for almost a week already, and it's a really nice thing to drive. So I mean, the first thing I want to say is I just love the idea of a 75th anniversary edition. It's paying tribute to the ones from World War II there in 1941, and it's really cool that they're doing this throwback. This one has even got the right paint. It's called Recon Green. It looks like old military Jeep paint, and I love that kind of retro throwback kind of stuff. Always appreciate that kind of stuff. And it has the really cool other little accents, I mean the badges and whatnot, of course, but I like the bronze wheels, and on the inside here you also have some bronze accents here that usually would just be normal silver that is now bronze for this edition. And so it's really cool, and I like all those things about it. And as far as driving it for a week here, it's a really nice thing to drive around in if you're into SUVs. I personally am not, so for me it's definitely a duller driving experience. It's comfortable though, it's smooth. This one has the V6, so it's got plenty of power, and no complaints there whatsoever. I think it's got about like 279 horsepower, 231 pound-feet of torque, I believe. So plenty of power, so no issues there. And you can get these with the 4-cylinder engine. There may be some complaints there if you weren't to get the V6 here, but this engine also, while we're talking about the engine, of course won't do as good on fuel economy as the 4-cylinder, but that's just going to be a trade-off that you'll have to decide for yourself whether or not you want to go with the V6 or the 4-cylinder here, because this one is rated at about 18 in the city and 26 on the highway for a combined average of 22. Now this one, in my week here of driving it, I've been averaging 18.8, so almost 19 miles per gallon, almost there where the city estimate should be, but definitely not at the mixed, even though I did do mixed driving. I'd say about 25% of my miles were on the highway. The rest of it was all city stop and go, which is very hard on a car's fuel economy and whatnot. So I'm not too upset with the fuel economy here. Again, we are talking about a 4,000 pound SUV, and so that just comes with the territory of that. But I do like, like I said, it's got a super smooth ride. It's very quiet. It's very refined. Jeep has improved so much on these interiors and everything. I mean, you couldn't even mention nice and refined in the same sentence as Jeep 10 years ago, and how far they've come, first with the Grand Cherokees, and now, trickling down here to the Cherokee as well. It's really impressive. And I love, the 8.4-inch Uconnect touchscreen that always works flawlessly. Unfortunately, it doesn't have Apple CarPlay yet. It's, that's one thing. That and the Android Auto, I think, are coming for 2017. So this one doesn't have us. That's the only thing that keeps this from being a perfect head unit. If it had that, it would have it all, and it would be fantastic. But as it is, I mean, it's very quick, snappy. I like the way that it looks. The graphics are all sharp and slick, and everything's very easy to use. And so really impressed with that. But there are some things about this interior while we're talking about it that aren't so impressive. The first is the fact that this 75th anniversary edition, now this one has the advanced track 4x4 system that gives you this little dial down here to be more aggressive with your off-roading or whatever you want to do. So it has some of that expensive mechanical equipment, but this 75th anniversary edition here, it does have the cloth seats, and you don't have the nice center screen that's very large and colorful. Instead, you have this one color one that is a little less impressive. But now, none of these things would be an issue if the price wasn't so high. But this one, as equipped, is almost $37,000. So, I mean, now, if you wanted leather seats and all that kind of stuff, you can get all that stuff in a cheaper Cherokee. You can get the Limited, which is actually cheaper, and, get less of the advanced mechanicals, or even the same mechanicals, and just do without the 75th anniversary package, and then you would have the leather and stuff for that price. But, as otherwise, I think everything else in this interior feels worthy of that price. The steering wheel is nicely leather wrapped. All the materials feel pretty good here, in typical upgraded fashion here for all the FCA products. They all have pretty good interiors, honestly, for the class they're competing in. And So those are all the positive things about the Cherokee here. Some of the other negatives, though, the main complaint for me is the transmission, which is a common complaint with these. My holdups with it during my week of driving here were that every time you're like backing out of a driveway and then you put it into drive to go, or you have to like stomp on the gas, and it always takes a split second before it finally actually fully engages into drive, and then you start going forward. There's always a lag there, which isn't, a problem if you're laid back and easy going, but if you're ever in a hurry or something, it could get a little bit annoying. Again, not the end of the world, but just, something to note here after driving it for a week. Another thing is while you are up and driving, the transmission does get a little clunky sometimes, and in the way that it shifts. It's the 9-speed automatic. It doesn't even go into 9th gear unless I think you're doing over 80 miles per hour. So, those other 8 speeds do work, pretty flawlessly most of the time. It doesn't hunt around too much for gears. It's, pretty smart and intelligent with giving you the power you need and downshifting when you need it to. But, it does clunk every once in a while, and just, a little lack of refinement. But again, we're talking about a Jeep here. So again, your standards for refinement and, quality shouldn't be sky high. You're not talking about a Mercedes or anything. But yeah, so those are really the only big takeaways here that are different from my week of driving that have changed since my first impressions. Overall, it's still a cool Jeep. I like that it does offer a lot of car, and it's one of the true crossovers that can actually off-road and can actually do it. All these other ones are just dressed up wagons essentially, where this is an actual off-roader. You can go anywhere with this thing, and it's very impressive with that stuff. But it could be more fun to drive. And honestly, the Renegade, which is much slower, smaller, that was actually a lot more fun to drive for me, even though it still was a little iffy around corners and stuff. It didn't handle great, obviously, like any of these Jeeps that aren't SRT models. But the Renegade to me actually felt more fun, and it just involved with the driving experience a little bit more. It was just a little more playful. This is a little more mundane and a little more blasé, and for a commuter, that's fine. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit of fun, I would probably suggest the Renegade or something like that, because that one just left me with a lot more of a fun mood than this one does. This one, it's just kind of it's a nice car, but in these very competitive times, being a nice car isn't always enough. So in conclusion, really well done job by Jeep here. It is a nice thing to live with for a week, and I think that anyone who owns one of these won't have any complaints aside from, like I said, the occasional iffy transmission issues here and there that are small and not the end of the world. And so as long as it's worth the money and you like the look, which is another very controversial thing about these Cherokees, it's definitely I guess I've warmed to it over the years here that it's been out now. But it's still just something that you either love it or hate it, and so it all just comes down to personal preference. This wouldn't be my choice, I think, for a small crossover, but I'm sure that a lot of other people out there love these because I see them everywhere. And so if you're interested in one of them, definitely go check it out, take it for a drive. I think you'll be pretty impressed with it. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the Cherokee in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.